evening and welcome to another edition of Ken Boxer Live. I'm your host, Ken Boxer. It's not very often that I have the opportunity to interview a truly amazing and talented man who also just happens to be one of my personal heroes. Joining us this half hour is the Los Angeles Lakers Director of Scouting and their head basketball consultant. Tonight we have Coach Bill Bertka with us. Coach Bertka continues to have an illustrious career. He has been with the Lakers for almost 45 years, almost as long as I've personally known him. Earlier in his career, he was a successful college basketball player and coach. From there, he became Santa Barbara's recreational department director, and then he and his wife started the most successful basketball, scouting service in the nation. So it's a real thrill for me to introduce longtime assistant basketball coach and a person I really call my friend, Bill Bertka. Welcome to our show.
Well, thank you, Ken. Seeing you brings back many memories. Of course, I've seen you over the years, but immediately thinking about when you used to come up to Channel 3 to watch Sports with Bertka.
The best show. You know, I was 10 years old, 11 years old. Ladies and gentlemen, this, as I said, you are my hero. I would ride my bicycle up to KEYT I think you taped on Friday at around noon or 2 o'clock, something like that?
That's correct.
And I was so excited to see you. And I was a young guy, and you would always say, "Would you like a Coke?" You know, we'd go to the Coke machine, you'd give me, it was a dime then, and you'd get me a Coke, and we'd see guys like Bill Toomey, Al Geiberger, Jim Ryan, the world record holder in the mile, visited the set. I was in Cloud 9 every week.
Well, we attracted so many famous athletes. Of course, Santa Barbara helps. Being here in Santa Barbara helps. And of course, we had the Santa Barbara Athletic Roundtable, and they used to come up and speak, whether it be Chick Hearn or Elgin Baylor or Jerry West over the years. And so it fit in nicely. It was sort of an interesting transition. The roundtable, and then of course, you remember I had a sports show, Sports with Bertka, on KIST.
Of course.
And so I had material from those shows, and then I did a show for Channel 3 called Recreation Report. That's how it all started. We used to go over the various recreational activities in the community. And so Gene Forsell at that time said, "Hey, Bill, you know, you ought to think about maybe you have a little sports show." And that's how it all started.
God, you're so interwoven in the city. I mean, from going back, you moved to Santa Barbara when?
I came back to Santa Barbara. Actually, I came back in 1961 to become city recreation director. I was basketball coach at Kent State University at that time.
Isn't it always great in all your travels to come back to Santa Barbara?
Well, it's a long. We don't have enough time on this show.
I mean, think how many miles have you logged in?
Go through the thought process of how I ended up in Santa Barbara. But I'll say this: when I first came to California in 1952 to become basketball coach at Midland School in Los Olivos, and I drove through Santa Barbara, I said, "This is the most beautiful place in the world," because that's my first exposure. And I said, someday I'm going to be able to live here in Santa Barbara.
Well, you've been a successful coach. I mean, you have, how many NBA championship rings do you have?
Well, and from the different capacities that I've been in, scout, assistant coach, general managers, and so forth. I wasn't general manager of the Lakers, but assistant coach, director of scouting, and now my title right now is special assistant to the general manager. That's the title they've given me today. But I have 10 rings.
That's amazing. I mean, if you think about it in the NBA, so maybe Phil Jackson has a couple more.
He has a couple more.
That's it.
But probably unfortunately, maybe the all-time leader in rings is Bill Sharman. Bill Sharman played all those years with the Boston Celtics, and then had his career with the Lakers. I don't know how many rings Bill Sharman has.
Wow. Wow.
And Bill Sharman just recently passed away.
Yeah, and in fact, I remember Bill was in Santa Barbara in one of the games, the exhibition games, early in the 70s.
That's correct.
You know, you've been known, you know, as a hardworking and a tough coach. and you're a fundamentalist when it comes to coaching. We have a clip of a very special talent who actually gives you praise. Let's go to this clip, and then we're going to talk about fundamentals of basketball. Let's go to Shaquille O'Neal.
I was always the type of person that liked to challenge myself, so I used to, listen to guys like Bertka. A lot of people don't mention his name, but he helped me out a lot. Like, he would tell me stuff like, you got to do this, young fella. This is what Kareem used to do. And I'd be like, for real?
That's Shaquille O'Neal talking about your talents as a coach.
Well, Shaq, he was one of a kind. Shaquille O'Neal in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, he was the strongest, biggest, quickest athlete I have ever been around. He didn't sustain that level of play, but those years with the Lakers, when they won those first 3 straight under Phil Jackson, right, he was the most powerful, explosive athlete I've ever seen. And the interesting part about Shaq was he was willing to listen, but he was also able to implement anything that you might have discussed with him.
Well, early in your career when you were coaching at Kent State, I was doing research on you for this interview, and a lot of the former students of yours told you that you were a very tough coach, but fair, and you just had the fundamentals down to a T. Well,
I believe in the fundamentals of the game. The game is not that complex. If you're fundamentally sound, then you're going to win your share of the games. Of course, that was the philosophy of John Wooden too. And the fundamentals of the game, proper shooting technique, rebounding technique, blocking out, defensive skills. If you are sound fundamentally, then you have a chance of being a good basketball player, and if you're a good basketball player, your team is a good team. The unfortunate part from the standpoint of fundamentals is so many players, because of, especially today, the tremendous athletic ability, tremendous speed and quickness, ability to jump and so forth, that they feel they don't have to be fundamentally sound. They don't have to learn how to block out, set a pick, move without the ball, those particular skills, because they can cover up with it in their early years because of their superior athletic ability. But when they get to the professional level, and we see this all the time, then they get exposed. If they aren't fundamentally sound when they get to the professional level, where there's only 15 players per team times 30, how many players is that? These are the best players in the world. Then they get exposed.
But let's talk about 3 players in particular about fundamentals. You've got Wilt Chamberlain, Dwight Howard, and Shaquille O'Neal. All of them phenomenal players, but one thing they could never do is shoot a free throw. Has anyone in the Laker organization ever said to them, why don't you do the Rick Barry approach and do an underhanded free throw shot? Maybe that'll work.
They've had so many suggestions. Shaq, they brought 3 or 4 different people in to work with Shaq. Everything from hypnosis, and it becomes a mental thing with the players. Of course, technique is a definitive factor. Technique is a definitive factor. But see, you mentioned 3 players. All 3 of those players are at least 7 foot tall. And consequently, the arc on the ball is, they don't get enough arc on the ball, and statistically, the better the arc, the better the percentage of the shot going through. And there's all kinds of in today's technology, there's all kinds of sophisticated systems to help these guys improve. But what transpires with them in many situations is that it becomes a mental issue with them. Of course, Shaq's favorite saying was, I make them when it counts.
Right, and he did. And so did Wilt Chamberlain. People don't know that on that 100, where he made the 100 points, that he still has the record for more free throws than anyone being made.
But his technique, between Shaq and Dwight doesn't really have bad mechanics. Shaq had a problem with his wrist. He had a little mechanics problem with his wrist. Chamberlain's technique was not very good.
I remember he used to stand like 3 feet from the free throw line at one point. Did anything.
Everything.
But you know, football has the drop kick that's never used. As a coach, is there any kind of thing, I don't know, like a drop kick in basketball that never gets used that often that you would ever put into a game?
I don't.
I mean, is there a technique like the hook? You know, we're going to see a clip on the hook shot. You don't see too many pure hook shooters except for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
That's because youngsters, when they start at an early age, they don't learn that technique. If people could get to them at an earlier age. There used to be, I don't know, I don't see it anymore, there used to be what they call bitty basketball. They played them on small hoops. The basket was, I forget what it was, 6, 7 feet off the floor. And they had a smaller ball. And having a smaller ball, a player can develop the proper technique. But when you take a youngster, 7, 8 years old, and he's trying to shoot the ball that they use in the pros, well, he develops bad technique, and that's a problem.
Sure.
And then, of course, there are a few people there are some, but there are a few that teach the hook shot.
Well, you talk a little bit about the hook shot in this clip, so let's watch Coach Bertka giving us some pointers on the hook shot.
There are certain basic fundamentals of the hook shot that are extremely important. You know, making contact, and then the step, and then the elevation. You know, the step, the elevation, and letting the ball go at the peak, how you use your body, how you use your arm. Those are the keys, how you finish. See, what people don't realize about the hook shot, when you shoot the hook shot, you're actually moving yourself into offensive rebound position. If you shoot the hook shot and you're falling away, like so many post players today, I always say this. If a guy says, I want to play for you and I'm a post player, and I say, show me your shot, and he shows me a fall away jump shot, forget it. You know, it may go in, it may not, but I'll never get many offensive rebounds if the guy misses. So I've always been an advocate of a post player who shoots the ball then attacks the basket. Moses Malone, who wasn't really a very good shooter, but probably one of the best offensive rebounders in the history of the game. Some players used to kid him. Moses would just throw the ball up so he'd go back and get the offensive rebound.
Coach Bill Bertka with us on Ken Boxer Live. The fundamentals, we're just talking about that with the hook shot. You see the new kids that come into the NBA. We just had, I think it was last year, the University of Kentucky had 4 first-year starters go into the league. Now, they can go into the NBA at any, I guess after 18, they can go into the league. But do they get the fundamentals, having only 1 year of college basketball, or are you an advocate of pushing them back and say, hey, stay in college for 4 years, learn the fundamentals, then come see us?
There's a very sensitive issue in the NBA about high school athletes and college players, and the NBA has done everything to encourage players to finish their college careers. However, in those that decide to are one and done, play 1 year and come out, whether it be for financial reasons or whatever reason that they might feel justified, a lot of them are not finished products. We have a good example right now on our team in Xavier Henry from Kansas.
Outstanding player, man. Outstanding.
He's a very exciting young player. He was a one-and-done player. When he came out of Kansas, he was a high draft pick, and he struggled. He went to, I think it was Memphis, and I forget the second team he went to, but he was considered not to have lived up to expectations. But he went to the D League and gained experience, and he's still working on his game, and he's an exciting prospect right now.
Charles Barkley has said, quote, NBA basketball is going through, is bad basketball, unquote. He's saying the only real teams in the NBA, only two, Miami and Indiana. He said, don't even want to talk about anything else. He says, do you believe the NBA is in a spiral right now, going down in talent? According to Charles, what he says is gold. I want to know your opinion on that. Is it bad basketball now?
I think there are some teams maybe that aren't playing good basketball, which happens every year. Of course, he pinpointed the two best teams. Popovich is one of the very best coaches today. San Antonio has been on top for a long time. They have excellent veteran players, and he's done a great job of managing that talent, and they've had great success. Of course, Indiana has bust out on the scene. They have come up with a good team. They play an interesting style, a very good fundamental team, very good defensively. Of course, Orlando Johnson from UCSB is in the rotation for the Indiana Pacers, and they're having good success. So the NBA game has changed so much in the last 10 years with the three-point shot, and it's become more of a point guard dominated game right now. There's so many great point guards that whether you go to take a Chris Paul from Tony Parker, every good team seems to have a dominant point guard, and the game is penetration and then passing out, drive, penetrate, kick, three-point shot. If he doesn't have the shot, he drives, he kicks to somebody else. You don't have the continuity offenses. The greatest continuity offense is the triangle. The triangle, all five men are moving, all five men are handling the ball, and you have floor balance, you have rebounding balance, and so forth. Very good, sound, fundamental style of play. Today's game is you break somebody down and they pass the ball, and that's pretty much dominant throughout the whole league.
If you could change a rule in the NBA, is there anyone that you just say, let's get rid of it? Let's make the game more exciting? Is there any rule that hampers that?
Yeah, I might put in a four-point shot.
I always thought if they put a little circle like at the mid-court range or something, and say, stand in this circle, and shoot it, you get an extra bonus.
Well, the three-point shot really made the game more. In the early years when the three-point shot first came out, teams would only take 5, 6 shots. Teams now take between 25 and 30 shots. Well, the average is about 80 shots a game. So some teams are taking half their shots are three-point shots, or at least 1/3 of their shots are three-point shots.
Do you think the three-point shot has elevated the game and make it more exciting?
It made it a hell of a lot more interesting, and it also created an opportunity for players of smaller stature, and it gave them the opportunity to influence the game by being able to make three-point shots, versus teams that had the dominant center, a Will Chamberlain, a Shaquille O'Neal, where they just threw it into him and it made the basket. Well, if you notice now, the game is played on the perimeter. You don't see a guy standing in a post very much.
Because of the big guy. If you got a big man like a Dwight Howard, standing in the middle, who's going to go through the lane? But
what they do, they have the big guy setting picks around the perimeter, then dive into the basket.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the exciting games I liked watching was a clip that we have of you, and I guess it's the Senior Olympics?
The Senior Olympics? You're going to show that?
Yeah, we're going to show that.
You're going to show that to the public?
Yeah, we're going to show it to you. And you're making a free throw. We got that, too. Let's watch. Bill Bertka.
You have to announce that was 80 and over Olympics.
Okay, let's watch.
Hi, I'm Bill Bertka, and I'm going to be 86, I'm proud to say. I'm just so happy to be participating in the Senior Olympic basketball program. Basketball has been my life from the days that I grew up in Akron, Ohio, and played in the YMCA leagues, and that was my start in basketball. When you go out there and play the game, you can preach as a coach and tell them how you want it played and how all the mistakes they're making, but now when you go out there, you got to get it done yourself. All those things that you're trying to get the players to do, you have to execute yourself. Well, I'm not worried so much about it at this stage of life. Hey!
Get your arm out, man.
You get your arm off of me, man. They give it, but they also take it. I fouled them a couple of times really good. They didn't say anything.
You're going to get a full on, fella.
Sorry.
What?
I'm sorry.
That's all.
The only thing I don't like about participating is if we lose. Now, we lost today, and I'm not a very happy guy.
I think we're all happy that Coach Bill Bertka has been joining us this half hour. You know, when I used to go up to see your show, Sports with Bertka, which, by the way, you brought with you something. That
I did.
It's a very unique. I don't think anyone else has this in Santa Barbara but you. Let's see if we could.
I got this out of my desk.
Let's see if we can hold that up. Look at this. What camera? Right there? Let's see. Which camera can we show? There we go. Sports with Bertka, Channel 3. Look at that. That brings back a lot of memories. Oh, wow. But you know what? I'll tell you, what was that?
It was the only show in town.
It was the only show in town. I got to tell you, when I used to go to your show many years ago, you used to have a name game, which you told me that you used to do it, and I remember you doing that. And before the show, I was mentioning we're going to do that tonight. I have a few names. You have people, Bill has not seen this list. What I'd like for you to do is I'm going to name 10 people, things, and I want you to give me, not necessarily the first word, but you can respond to what you think.
I'm a little slow. I'm a little slow on some things.
Okay. Tell us what you think. Okay. The late Dr. Jerry Buss.
Probably the greatest owner in professional sports. I owe my life to the opportunity he gave me.
Okay. How about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Without any doubt, because of his longevity and skills and mental approach to the game, the best big man ever to play the game.
And do you think for the future too? You think anyone's going to come around to be better than him?
No, there are youngsters coming along, but he set a big, high benchmark. He played till he was 42, really never had, other than the ankle injury in 79, 80, any other major injuries. And do you think a unique athlete.
Do you think Kobe's going to bring this team, the Laker team this year, to at least into the playoffs? Maybe a championship?
He's capable of doing that with the type leadership that he provides, and his personal intensity. Was that one of the questions?
No, it wasn't one of the questions.
You deviated.
That's right. We're off the game a little bit. We're going to come back to it in just a moment.
Of course, we're taping this show right now, and they're playing, and I don't know how they're doing in Washington, but that dates your show.
Okay, that's okay.
But
will he take us there?
His last game out, there was a semblance of Kobe Bryant in his play.
Okay. Well, do you think the Lakers are going to make the playoffs? Can they?
Can we make the playoffs? I'll be damn disappointed if we don't.
Well, let's hope they do. Okay. What about Jerry West?
Jerry West, a unique basketball man of all time. You know, he brought professional basketball to California in the early 60s when the Lakers came here. A man who was initially frustrated because of the Boston Celtics domination, but then when he became a general manager, he got even. Okay,
yeah, of course. And you mentioned Boston Celtics, that's one of the number 7, Boston Celtics. What do you think of the Boston Celtics?
Whenever I think of the Boston Celtics, and this may surprise a lot of people, I admired their competitiveness. I admired how tough they played. And there was no team ever that we play against that I personally and the Lakers enjoy beating than the Boston Celtics.
1985?
1985 was the best World Championship of my 10.
Really?
That's right.
Really? Can you tell us just that feel that you had when you beat them?
It was a sensational, because of the years of frustration up until 1985. I can remember when we finished that game, I forget, I think it was Byron Scott threw the ball up in the air and we were racing to get off the court. I looked up at Red Auerbach.
You did? Okay, we don't have a lot of time. I'm going to run by this quickly. Magic, Larry Bird, and Pete Maravich.
Well, which one?
All of them. We don't have a lot of time.
Well, Magic,
Larry
okay.
Bird, Pete Maravich.
Okay. Well, Magic Johnson is one of the most unique basketball players ever to play the game at the guard position. He could have played any of the positions, actually. And he was a great team leader, totally unselfish.
And you got about 30 seconds. So
okay.
You got
next one.
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird, tough competitor, limited athletic ability, but he played the game at the best level, and he wasn't a particularly great athlete, just because he was smart and had a big heart.
And Pete Maravich, you worked with him.
Maravich had superior skills. Maravich could do wonders with the basketball, but his game wasn't geared. It was tough to blend his style of play into a team concept.
This went by too quickly. Thank you so very much, Bill. Okay. You're a delight. It's good to have you.
Those are my memories.
And we're delighted to share those with you.
And
you come back again sometime, maybe?
Oh, yeah. If you want me.
Oh, absolutely.
And if I have anything of significance to contribute.
You always do. There's too much to talk about. Well, that's it for another edition of Ken Boxer Live. Stay with us on kenboxerlive.com, and you'll catch all the latest Ken Boxer Live news. It's that simple. So for my guest, Coach Bill Bertka, and for my director, George Montalvo, and for my entire production crew, the hardest working crew, I'm Ken Boxer saying we'll see you next week on Ken Boxer Live. Good night, everybody.